Dancers have a lot to balance. From their pirouettes to their jumps, a dancer's performance is a direct result of hard work and motivation. So where does food fit into this? There's a lot of myths and a ton of antiquated ideals about what a dancer's diet should look like. I'm Rachel Fine, registered dietitian nutritionist and founder of To The Point Nutrition, and I'm here to dispel those. Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today. Well, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to everybody.
I'm Lauren Fadeley, my married teacher name, if you will. I danced as principal of Pennsylvania Ballet. I was in the corps of New York City Ballet. I was principal soloist with Miami City Ballet. So I had a long career, many different places, kind of trying to always find my, fulfill my dreams. And then during the pandemic, I had a baby and came back briefly with Miami. We were able to perform outside a little bit, and then was offered the principal of the school for Kansas City Ballet. So it was like, okay, I'm retiring, we're moving, and I just felt so ready to give back. I was like, I've reached my point as a dancer. Now it's time to help the next generation. So I was there for 3.5 years, and then just recently moved to Indianapolis Ballet, where I was offered the head of the school for the Indianapolis School of Ballet, and then my husband's a rehearsal director with the company. So we kind of both got those dream jobs at once. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I went to Indiana University, and I'm heading down there today to go teach a couple classes with the majors. So.
Well, I didn't go to a rah-rah type of school. I went to NYU, but my husband went to the University of Michigan. So I married into a very cult-like.
I know. I'm like 20 years later, I'm back. Like,
So
I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to teach, but I gotta go to this restaurant and the store, and it's wonderful to be back in so.
Absolutely. And then also real quick, a fellow COVID mom.
It was not, I was
having
already
a baby
pregnant.
during COVID.
Okay? I was already pregnant, and then it came. And well, what's interesting is that I actually didn't miss like a single show with Miami City Ballet, like a single program, because we did our February program. I ended up not doing the last few shows because I was like getting a little too along, that it was a little too hard. But then they were supposed to do another program, obviously, 2 more programs. And I was like, well, I'm just, I won't be in those. But then no one was in those. And then my maternity leave day, first day back, scheduled way before COVID, was everybody's first day back from trying to get back into the studio. So it was just funny because, we're all wearing masks and everyone's like, oh, this is so hard. I'm like, but also I had a baby. Like, I know you never saw that part, I was like, shut down. I was like 4 months, and then I came back 3 month after, and I was like, well, this isn't fair. But also,
it's like, but also there, I've got a baby. And now I'm really tired. I'm really tired. And now I have a 4.5-year-old, and I'm still really tired.
I know. Thanks for doing the 9 a.m. I know it's early for the world, but not really early for moms. So.
Absolutely. Well, Lauren, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to connect. I'd love to hone our conversation in on your work, really being in the front of the classroom now, and being that person who is helping to cultivate and foster healthy environments in the studio. So just to back up a little bit though, I'd love to hear about how your relationship with dance has shifted. Obviously, you've made a bunch of career shifts in your time as a professional dancer, from pregnancy and now to these more recent career shifts. So how has your relationship with dance changed?
I think I've always had this kind of value that, ballet is too hard to not fully feel like you are enjoying it, that you're supported, that it's your purpose, and I know that it's hard a lot of times based on environments and just situations. There's so many other things that kind of can play into your training, your casting, your career, and so for me, I just love the balancing style. That was always what worked for my body, which is what led me to go to SAB, which led me to get into New York City Ballet. But whenever I would hit these roadblocks of like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? This doesn't feel right. I always knew like, okay, I either am walking away or I'm making a change. For example, when I was in New York City Ballet, I was 16 years old as an apprentice, going still in high school, you know, and now had this full-time job and went right into, you know, that professional life. There was none of this like trainee and wellness and you know, it was just like, oh, you're a student today and now you're a professional dancer, figure it out. And that was really hard for me. I had a drive and a wanting to do well, obviously, but I just felt like I didn't understand the tools to be able to achieve my best self and my best career there. So with that kind of sense throughout my career, you know, that's why I ended up going to college, because I had an injury and I had, you know, some eating things and not the right body and all of those, you know, went to college, and that gave me a whole new sense of purpose. And then, you know, danced in Pennsylvania Ballet for 9 years. And then, you know, we had an artistic director shift and it went more classical, and it just didn't feel right for me. So all of that is just to say that now, as someone who's in the front of the room, I try to be really understanding to what the whole person is going through. You know, you're not just a number in a room trying to dance. You know, you're a real person, and there's other things that are contributing to your journey as a dancer. So that's usually like my main focus. Obviously, yes, like I want the technique, I want the musicality, I want all of those things, but I try to remember what it was like. You know, I'm really only like 4.5 years out from being there. So I try to be like, oh yeah, that I know how you're feeling right now. Like, what can I do to help you with that? And checking in with them and just trying to be real with them. You know, like this is who I am, and this is how I'm gonna be in the front of the room. And I think I just want the best for everybody, and I know how hard it is. So that's kind of where I feel like I get better results in that way. You know, it's like, yes, we all kind of grew up in that time of like, you know, this is good, this is bad, you know, and we don't need that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I'm taking away from what you're saying, and really such incredible points here, but the big thing that stands out to me is the just having a very large sense of who you are, to be able to know when something doesn't feel right, or just to know when you might be ready for a shift in your career. And I think that's a really interesting point, because I think that it sounds like you maybe, I don't want to assume something, but it sounds like you were able to develop that relatively, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but like early on, or at least within your career. I do feel like a lot of dancers have a hard time of developing that strong sense of self, to know like, okay, this doesn't feel like it's something that I want to do for the long haul, so I need to make a change. Can you speak to that a little bit in regards to any advice for our either younger pre-professional or even professional dancers who might really be scared to take a step?
Yeah, no,
and
absolutely. And I will say that,
doing.
like, when I tell the story now, it sounds, you know, so like perfect, you know, like, oh, I did all these things, you know. It actually started out of fear. You know, I was 18 years old in New York City Ballet. I had broken my foot during a performance because I wasn't, you know, nutritionally taking care of myself. So that was like a whole thing. And then I had this moment one day of like, well, like I was starting to come back, and I was like, but I don't want to come back. I was like, I'd rather be injured. Like, here I am in New York City Ballet. Like I was in the core at that point. And I was like, oh no, I've made it. I achieved this dream that so many people want. And then it's not what I thought. Like I just couldn't see myself 10 years
Mm.
from then continuing on in that path. And I feel like it was more like I I was scared and I didn't know what to do because I couldn't see that. And I knew that they weren't happy with me either. And I felt like, you know, I had potential to get let go moving forward. And it was one of those like, well, I'm gonna leave before they try to get rid of me. And it turned into this wonderful story, you know, where I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to college. My parents, because here I was at 18. I'm like, well, I'm retired. My life is, you know, like you know, and I vividly remember that. And now, of course, you look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. But my parents were like, you're 18. What everybody else when they're 18 goes to college. Why don't you go to college? And in the moment, it really felt like I was like selling out, like, okay, I guess I'll just do this because I don't know what else I'm going to do. And it turned out to be the thing that saved me and gave me that longevity in my career. So I think I knew that there was something that wasn't, I just couldn't picture myself doing it day in and day out. And I think if I had maybe reached out for more resources, gotten help with, you know, like therapy, nutrition, physical therapy, all of those things, I probably like could have changed it around. But in that moment, I couldn't see past that. And so it was okay, this is what I'm going to do. But then once I had made that big change, that's kind of what, and seeing that in college, it made me feel so much more well-rounded, and it gave me this background that I knew if I had that feeling again of I don't want to dance or it's not feeling right, I then had a degree and something else that I could fall back on. That's what then gave me the confidence. And seeing how well that worked out, I know I'm lucky in the sense that it really did work out. I'm very grateful for that. You know, I don't take that for granted. But then that kind of was like, well, now this is what I have to do. You know, like if I'm feeling this way again, I know that I have other options, and I know that um, I need to do what's best for myself and my career. So yeah, it was hard. It sounds good on paper, like, oh yeah, I was so strong, but I was very scared, you know. So but now as I've, you know, experienced and older, it kind of it led itself to that happening, and now I can really feel when, you know, I'm like, wait a minute, you know, either we got to fix this or we got have to move on, you know.
Very relatable, by the way. And I know a lot of dancers can relate to this, but personally, I can really relate to this as well because it was around that time, also like 18, 19, when I remember very specifically, similar to you, having gaining this perspective of just not, at the time I was also struggling with my body image and my relationship with food, not having the resources that I needed. I didn't know that at the time. But really like thinking like I cannot see myself continuing this for the next 10 years. And that's when I made the shift and started my degree in nutrition. Um, so really relatable. And then similar, having that, you know, well, this could be a fallback, this could be another option. And then of course, even getting back into the dance world as well. So that was really relatable. I'm curious, when did you connect the dots between food as a support for whether it be your dancing or maybe
like
your
I said, when
recovery?
I was still a teenager and, you know, in New York City, I really didn't have that kind of understanding. It was very much like, oh, you know, I was told you don't look the way we want, we can't put you on stage. And I'm like, well, what do I do? You know? And so I was like always at the gym and just I wasn't eating enough for myself. And that was a hard thing to kind of understand. And I do think my foot broke because I was going up and down a lot. And again, I wasn't told when I looked good. So I just never really knew. But I will say, you know, like I saw nutritionists throughout my career and stuff. And it was a lot of times like whenever there was an issue, it was like I wasn't eating enough. And I was always scared to like, are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but then it did make me feel better, and it did make me look better. And it's just hard as a dancer. You're in the mirror all day long in a leotard and tights, being told what you're not doing right. Like it's so hard to like be able to wrap your head around all of that. So I do think once I was able to have the support of professionals, and I think that too back in the day, it felt like if you were if you needed help, it was like you weren't good enough, you weren't strong enough to do it yourself. It felt like, oh, I can't handle this. But now I feel like it's the luxury to have all of that, like I would love to have all of those things all the time, all that support. So I think that's a really nice change in the dance world, that kind of understanding and acceptance to not have that stigma of it being like, oh, well, I can't do this myself.
Yeah. Yeah, you raise a really great point. First of all, that underfueling is the most common struggle that dancers face with that I see as a dietitian, whether it's unintentional or intentional. Quick shout out to SAB because they're more recently really making a ton of initiatives with their wellness program, myself being included.
They had a virtual alumni event.
Plug.
All about it, and it's so wonderful, and I'm so happy. Yes, like I said, that this is now what's happening. Back then, we just didn't have the information, and it was like we're just kind of doing how you had been taught. And I think it's great that finally it's like we're getting that shift. So sorry to interrupt, but yes, I'm very, very excited.
I totally agree. And to ask you a question about, again, just now your more recent roles as an educator and administrator, how do you encourage your dancers build just life balance rather than really fixating too much? Because we know that as dancers, we do have to spend a ton of time in the studio and training, right, for this profession and for this passion.
Well,
but how do you also
what's
encourage
really nice
that
in
balance?
Coming into the Indianapolis School of Ballet is they have a pre-professional program, but they don't have like a dedicated like daytime program where they're there all day. So they go to high school, and they'll be like, hey, I don't know if I can come to class because I have prom, or I have like a retreat. I have a couple students that are under a school retreat this week, and it's like, great, that's awesome, because that is going to give you perspective for when you are in the studio. And then I feel like they're able to really like focus when they're there on what they're doing in the moment, and then they have all these other things that are interest to them. And I have many dancers here too that they don't want to be a professional dancer, but they enjoy taking class, they enjoy being with their friends there, they enjoy performing. So it's like, yeah, this is what I'm doing while I'm here, and I'm enjoying it, and it will help me in other things, but it's not the end all be all of everything. And I like that approach, and I appreciate that they've I walked into that already. So obviously you have to still do enough to keep up with what you're doing. But I mean, I want you to go to prom. I didn't get to go. I went to prom before I moved to SAB, but I did Swan Lake during my prom, like I didn't get that. So I want that.
Yeah, that's a really great perspective. Just having the balance with school built into it is really great. For your dancers, having them have like a standard school day I love that. I agree. It really helps to just build in that overall, where they don't have to become too hyper fixated on this. And then for our dancers who, are more in a pre-professional track and maybe who are doing online schooling as well, what would you say to maybe encourage that they build in some more balance throughout their day?
The daytime program in Kansas City. They were there like 9 to 3, Monday through Friday, and then rehearsals, So I know it, and especially for a dancer who's just transitioning into that schedule, it's a lot because you just feel like, oh, this is everything. But I do think the bonds that they have with their fellow, dancers, I see them doing things outside of the studio. So even though they're still like, with the people, I feel like they're able to do other things, and they have other interests, reading books and, singing in church and all, like just having that some other outlet, I think is really important. And that's what, when I went to college, that's what really gave me that understanding. I was like, oh, I'm sitting in this seminar of like 150 people and no one knows I'm a dancer and no one cares I'm a dancer. It was like we're all taking the same test, and eventually if it came up, they'd be like, oh, that's so cool, but it wasn't defining who I was. And so I tried to keep that with me, even though when I was dancing, I was very focused in ballet, trying to just remember those other experiences, because it is so easy to just, do it 100%, which is good for your dancing, but we have to take care of the whole person.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just knowing that like there could be multiple parts of your identity. I love that you said that. You could be the student, you are the dancer, you could be the educator, you could be the student, you could be the writer. There's so many different ways. Lauren, you've really shared such beautiful insight. The final question that I want to leave everybody off with, it's a very general one, and you've already really touched on this in many ways already, but how would you redefine what
I think
to be the healthy
it's
dancer?
having the balance. Yes, when you're in the studio, it is important to be focused. It can't just always be a free-for-all. Like if this, even if you don't want to be a dancer, part of that dedication, the practice, I think that's really important, but not taking yourself so seriously that you can't be who you really are. And I think just asking for support and knowing we're there. Like that's what I'm always like, I'm teaching you this class and I'm telling you these things to do, but I'm here for you to help you get better. I already did it. I don't need to do it anymore, So it's knowing that your teachers are there to help you, and they want to help you become your best self. So and I love that we're starting to see that shift in the world.
I totally agree, right? Just knowing that resources are out there, take advantage of them. And by the way, your students are very lucky to have you, and just to have you have these incredible perspectives on just overall cultivating that healthier environment. So thank you, Lauren. I appreciate you sharing your time with us today, and it's been wonderful to connect.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, well, we'll talk soon, okay?
Bye.